Welcome to the Real Food RN Wellness Podcast, the show that empowers you to open your eyes and mind to embrace a healthful life and take your health into your own hands. With topics like detoxing, basic foundational complete nutrition, and essential oil studies and uses, you found the perfect place to start your journey to better all-around health for you and your family. Here you'll discover how to equip yourself to live healthy on your terms with your host and RN, Kate.
With more than 1 million video views each month on her blog and YouTube channel, Genevieve Howland, aka Mama Natural, shares funny but informational posts and videos that empower women to embrace natural pregnancy and parenting. Her best-selling book, The Mama Natural Week-by-Week Guide to Pregnancy and Childbirth, is bringing the benefits of natural childbirth to the masses. I agree. I have this book. I have read it. It's amazing. Along with her husband, Michael, she also co-leads the #1 online natural childbirth education course and loves supporting mamas in the trenches. She's a mom of 2 and lives in the Sunshine State and loves Jesus. And she's actually currently pregnant as we interviewed this podcast. And she is a good friend of mine. And she's just a light in this world, you guys. Follow everything she says and everything she does and everything she does online. Welcome to the podcast, Genevieve. One of my real life friends who is one of the most amazing bloggers I've ever, who you were like the original blogger that I followed years and years ago because you're so amazing. So actually, the video that helped me find you was the bleep that crunchy mamas say, which, how many views has that had now? Millions of views?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Yeah, millions and millions at this point. You know, it hasn't gotten as much as like my birth videos, but it's definitely one of our biggest videes. So
yeah, I was like, I love this girl. I will follow her anyway. So I would just love. I mean, you have such an amazing story from being like corporate-ish to like this super crunchy mama with like the biggest YouTube channel ever. So I would just love for you to share a little bit of your story and like how you got into healthy and natural living.
Sure. I think it's, important to say because I think, some of us are like, oh, I'm so virtuous. I follow this natural living lifestyle and blah, 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 blah. But for me, it was more, I didn't kind of have a choice, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I did have a choice, but the choice was not pretty. So I was literally like eating myself to death with sugar. I was such a sugar addict. And I was I could not get enough, So I was truly like addicted to sugar. And I finally realized like I'm either going to kill myself or I have to like give this stuff up. Kind of like an alcoholic, you know what I mean? Like with
well, it's more addictive
or any
than
other
cocaine.
Addiction.
They've shown that in rat studies it's more addictive than cocaine. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I understand that. I totally understand that. So it was like 1990. It was January 1st, I think, of 1999. So this is a long time ago, but I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I kind of just hit a soul bottom. Like, God, I will do anything just not to overeat like this and just binge and wake up with the remorse and the shame and the weight gain and all that. Because at this point, I mean, I was obese, for my height and weight, you know what I mean? Like if you looked at the clinical definition and stuff like
the
that.
BMI, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just kind of surrendered. I was like, I'll do anything. And that kind of started my journey. And it was just kind of one day at a time that I kind of put myself back together with God's help and a lot of other people's help. And I have not had refined white sugar intentionally, at least. You know how a lot of times it's slipped into a million things since then. So that is a true miracle.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like once you remove it, after you wait a while, you know what I mean? And it basically became my new normal. So it's not like I'm white knuckling it at like birthday parties, like, oh, I want that cake, because it's been so long that that's almost like, it just doesn't belong in my diet. It's like eating something that's not even a food item. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It doesn't even usually call to me. So anyway, so that started it, and I got clean with the food, and I lost weight, and I just started, as you clean up one area of your life, then it kind of trickles into other areas. So I started looking at cleaning supplies and makeup and different things, mostly because I started paying attention and I wasn't numbing myself out all the time. And I noticed like when I would clean, and I was deep cleaning my tub or something like that, my lungs would kind of hurt. And I finally made the connection. Well, it's this, harsh ammonia that's in this, cleanser. And so it kind of was like just this ripple effect. And that's kind of how I got to be more this like natural mama, so to speak, was just starting with that one choice to give up sugar, which I really didn't want to, but I had to. And, God can make it a beautiful thing. That's one of the greatest gifts. Having that sugar addiction seriously was one of the greatest gifts that in my life, because it just started this chain reaction of so many awesome things.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started your blog, or I mean, it put you on that path to
Yes.
creating it. So how
Yeah.
did you create your blog, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, like, what was I
Sure.
mean, my first recipe was applesauce. Like, what was your first thing?
Yeah. I don't even remember. It's funny because we started as a YouTube channel. We were total YouTubers. And, Michael, both him and I, we always dreamed of being entrepreneurs. I think because both of our parents were entrepreneurs. I never saw like my dad go to the corporate office, you know what I mean? The corporate world. He always worked for himself for the most part. And the same thing with Michael's dad. That's my husband, Michael. So anyway, we always had these dreams. Wouldn't it be cool if we could just like find our own way of, earning a lifestyle and stuff like that? And so one afternoon he was like reading the paper. He saw some article about YouTube. This is so funny. Or he was reading a magazine. It was this article about YouTube. It was their 5th year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And he was reading about these families. I know. So this is like,
seems like a long time ago.
Although it is surprising. Yeah. Like YouTube really isn't as old as you think it is. Like you think it's been around for a cajillion years, and it really hasn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you're looking at it, it's like, oh my gosh, these families actually are like doing this as like their full-time living, making videos and stuff. So we're like, well, we should just, play with it and just have fun with it. And Michael had gone around the world, and he was like one of the first persons who did vlogging. So he did videos from around the world of his travel. So he already had a ton of, film editing experience. And, he knew a lot about media and social media. He had a website. He had a one-word website, which is like unheard of, you know what I mean? Like his URL. So he was like, had really been prepared to do this, and then for me, I really did not, obviously have that kind of experience. But when I was a little girl, my dad got a video camera, and I was like the only member of the family who would get in front of the thing, because my brother and my mom were like, get that away. So I had a lot of video, filming practice, just because I was always kind of the entertainment in these videos that we would do. So the combination, God puts us together, right? And it was just a good fit, a good team. And so we started doing videos when I was pregnant with Griffin, because I noticed that other women were doing that. It was kind of like a pregnancy journal or diary, and they would go through each week, and it was tagged a certain way. So I'm like, why don't we just start with this? And I'm like, even if no one ever watches it, it'd be nice, like time capsule for our kid, or he might like to watch this. So we started doing that. And then, Michael is so good at editing, and, my first videos were absolutely terrible in terms of just energy and everything like that. But he was really good at editing and really good at putting B-roll in. So it was a little bit more interesting visually. And slowly we just started to get like a little bit of a following, and then it just kind of grew from there. And it wasn't until like, gosh, I would say a year or two later that we're like, oh, we should start a website. You know what I mean? So it really started with the YouTube, and then went to the website, and then everything else. So
that's so cool. I just love it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I mean, you guys totally were meant to be together. I mean, you're such a yin and yang.
you.
I mean, like in your talents and your personalities, everything. It's awesome.
Yes.
So you decided to go natural after the sugar. And then probably after you got pregnant, I know that's a huge slippery slope for most mamas, because you freak out about everything. And so then so your blog, you had your videos, you had your blog, you had all this stuff. So what turned you on to writing like an actual course and the book? Because I know that, I mean, looking at that, it's like a monumental task to even think of, it's like eating an elephant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. For many years we did absolutely nothing, and we just did, just free content, videos, posts and everything like that. And then we were like, okay, if we really want to, do this as a livelihood, what could we offer to moms? How could we actually service them, but also earn some income? And so it was like, we started brainstorming different ideas. And that's really when we were getting to this place where we realized there were so many different health bloggers out there. I mean, there are so many, right?
So many.
And Oh my gosh, right? And I can't compete, frankly. Like, I'm friends with Katie from Wellness Mama. She's the most prolific writer. That girl is a machine. She is like a genius, and she can just like whip out all these posts. Like, I think like in one year she did over 260 posts or something just crazy, right?
Yeah, and
So
she has
that is
6
her
kids.
gift. Yeah, with 6 kids. I know. She's an amazing. But like that is her talent. That is her gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then other people, might focus in on, they just find different niches or different ways to attack it or whatever. So for us, I was like, well, this isn't really working because just being a generalist, there's so much going on. So what could we really hone in on? And that's when I was like, well, my passion really is birth, pregnancy, and then like that couple years postpartum, because it's such a precious time in a woman's life, and it's so sacred, and it's also just wrought with lots of questions, fears, concerns, and you want to do everything perfectly and stuff like that. So that's where we narrowed in on that, and we're like, well, why don't we create a birth course? And that was really from our own experience, because I took a Bradley birth course. I really liked it. I thought it was good. It was a little bit antiquated for my personal tastes, but it definitely gave me a lot of great information. But I remember I was maybe like 6 or 7 months pregnant. I was driving across town at the end of the day. I was working full time at the time, because this is my first child, and I was just exhausted. And so just sit there, and our classes would go for 3 hours. This woman was super into it, and she would just keep talking, and blah, blah, blah. And so I was, I just remember being like, it'd be so cool if we could just do it on our time, on our schedule, and do it from the comfort of our home. And so that's, most of the things that we ever do is because it's like, well, I wish I had this when I was pregnant. So that's why we created the online birth course. And I was really good friends with this gal who at the time was a doula and a placenta encapsulator and a lactation consultant. Now she's a midwife. I mean, this woman is like she's like every crunchy credential you could possibly put behind your name. But anyway, we lived in the same town. And so I was like, well, partner up with her. We did this class. It was fun. And moms are really loving it. And my favorite part is we have like private Facebook groups, and it's so personal. Because that's the thing about an online birth course is the part of the reason why I like Bradley, it was just meeting other moms, you know what I mean? And you didn't feel like such a freak because you wanted to not get the epidural or try to, not get induced or whatever. And so in this Facebook group, we kind of create that personal touch. There's tons of dialogue. There's, celebrations. There's the disappointments. And it just makes it feel like there's skin on, like you've got this community of support. So I love it. It's so fun to take these moms through, this education course. So yeah, but we just did it. Bird by bird, we took us a long time to write it and to film it. But it was all so worth it. And, I absolutely loved it.
So you have a book, which I have a copy of, and I'm reading through. It's amazing. My daughter has read through it. She's so fascinated.
Aww.
Yeah, she just loved it. She's like, Mama, is this your friend, Mama Natural? Is this Genevieve? I'm like, yes, honey. Wow. So she kept reading it. So you have the book, then you have the email course, which is free, and then the course, which is paid, which is like everybody should have that course. When I first became pregnant with my first daughter, I went to the OB because even with a crunchy background, coming from an allopathic background of nursing, I thought I must go to the OB because that will make sure my baby is the safest. And then when I got there and started bringing up my crunchy ideas, she gave me the big old eye roll and changed the subject. And I was like, peace out. And we were like, oh, thank you for your help. And then like immediately changed to a midwife group. And
yeah,
the education I got from the OBs, it was like don't eat blue cheese, microwave lunch meat. I'm like, really? This is it? Make sure you're taking a good multi or prenatal, but they didn't explain, the difference between whole food prenatals and synthetic prenatals and folate and folic acid and all the little intricacies that are very important. So once I found my midwife group, it was just like a whole different world. These were like earth mamas, and they're like, have you heard of hypnobirthing? Bradley method, all these doors opened up. My chiropractor like changed all my supplements. I went in for regular, all these things. It takes a team of women to help you birth this perfect baby. But in OB world, not to come down on the OBs, absolutely there is high risk pregnancies. There are people who need emergency C-sections, definitely. And I deliver in a hospital with the midwives for that reason. In case we have an emergency, we have our OB team, and so we definitely need both available. But I think that women should if you're a normal healthy mama and you're not high risk, maybe consider having a midwife and an
Yeah.
OB as a backup, because we really need it's so multifactorial with the nutrition and the supplements and all that stuff. So I just love, because your birth course, it not in your book and everything, not only goes over like the week by week of, oh, today your baby is an orange seed, like I love the
Hmm.
growth stuff from Baby Center, but I wish that Baby Center would have offered more of, okay, it's okay to drink kombucha, or you should be
Right.
doing pelvic floor exercises and here's the right ones, and all the things that you offer. Like in yours, it's like start eating dates every day and here's
Hmm.
why, like things where I'm like, what? Why?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
how did you find all of this information? Was it that woman that you had teamed up with through the course, or all your research over the
I just
years?
like geek out. Like that is probably my biggest passion, and it applies to anything, whether it's food or anything, but especially, of course, with birth and babies and just any little thing we can do to increase vitality, health, make it easier. I'm so passionate about it. I mean, that's why even like at the beginning when I would blog and stuff like that, I would try to find, like my daughter, for example, loved goldfish. She would get them at church. I'm like, thanks a lot, church. Not
Yeah.
that, goldfish are the worst food, but they certainly aren't the best food either. So it's like, can I figure out how to make this in a healthier way that she would still, and then so figuring out that recipe. So things like that, like any way we can make our lives easier, still get the benefits, and just optimize it. And that's really with birth. So yeah, I mean, just doing tons of research, like the dates I noticed in the women in my, and I've really gotten to see this firsthand just by having now hundreds of women going through our course, thousands probably by now. Just the women that are religious about having 6 dates a day, the last 4 weeks of pregnancy, and then taking the red raspberry leaf tea, at least 2 cups a day. With, again, they've got to get the midwife's approval or the doctor. But drinking that, usually for most women, the second trimester on is okay. Other women are a little bit more sensitive to the uterine toning that takes place. And so they might have to wait till their third trimester or kind of play with that. But those two things tend to equate to faster, easier births. I mean, some of these
Mm.
first time moms are having births in like 6 hours,
Oh,
which is phenomenal. That's
it's
like a
amazing.
third of what the average, right, first time
Yeah.
birth is. So I'm like, anything that we can do, because, birth is hard. Unmedicated birth can be very challenging the first time around. And so anything we can do to take the edge off is huge.
Oh, yeah.
So that is like my passion point, is just, you know, helping moms find ways to make the whole process more enjoyable. And also, I try to be very realistic that it is intense. You're going to have to use, like, you have to have a big toolkit of things you can pull, levers you can pull when you're in the heat of the moment, because there are going to be times where you're like, give me the C-section, give me the
Mm-hmm.
epidural. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this. And, but the majority of women in my course, they get to give birth without any interventions. And that is, the majority of women can go through birth and pregnancy life
Yeah, and I love too how,
interventions. We have the medical support. We have all, yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted. I love how on your website too you share
noise.
you share all the birth stories, or so many birth stories that show like a
Mhm.
positive outcome and beautiful smiling happy mamas, where a lot of times I know when I was first became pregnant I was really scared, because what I had seen on
Mhm.
television was women sitting up in bed screaming bloody murder, and I thought, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh." And when I dove into the world of crunchy births, it was like this whole world of just amazingness. And I know it's
Mhm.
there's still a lot of people who really want to follow the allopathic modern medicine model because they're afraid of whatever. And so I still have a lot of people who are like, yeah, that sounds great. And my husband included in this, they still want to have a baby not in a bathtub in their or a tub in the middle of their living room, but actually in a hospital setting. I know my husband said, I have one request with these births. I want you to have it in the hospital because I'm afraid. He goes, you can do whatever you want in there. You can bring in all the crazy voodoo people. You can do all the weird oil things and have like diffusers and like music playing. He's like, but please do it in a hospital. I'm like, okay, this is our child. I will honor your wish, but I want to do it at this hospital
Mhm.
because they have a midwife group and they will totally not intervene if I don't want them to. And they were amazing. They were
Mhm.
amazing. I mean, to give a shout out, Methodist midwives in Minnesota here, they're unbelievable. And they came in and intervened when they needed to do checks. and when it was time. But outside of that, I had a doula and we just labored and it was beautiful. And I did that 3 times, non-medicated, wonderful, amazing births. But I know there's a lot of people who are still like, I need to be in the hospital setting. I need to have an OB. So for that population, like what recommendations can you give to people to maybe improve birth outcomes in just a standard hospital setting where they're not going to necessarily be doing these things like delayed cord clamping and skin to skin and all that? Like what kind of things can people write on their list for their birth plan when they go to their hospital setting?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. For some women, they don't have any other option but going to a hospital. And like 98% of women give birth in hospitals. So I am a huge supporter of like, okay, how can you optimize that experience? Because you absolutely 100% can have a natural childbirth in a hospital, even if it's a mainstream hospital, but you're going to have to work against the system a little bit. And I think that's part of like, depending on your hospital, because there are some hospitals that are absolutely amazing. They're very baby friendly, pro breastfeeding, pro delayed cord clamping, all those great things. But that's not, I wouldn't say that is the norm. That's definitely not, where it is where we're at today. I want it to get to that place, but that's definitely not where we are at today. So I think the first thing is just kind of accepting, like, you know what, the system is a little bit against me, just so you have set appropriate expectations with yourself, you know what I mean? And with the process that you're probably going to reach some resistance, right? So I think it just helps you prepare yourself so that you're not just disappointed from the get-go. And then I think it's about talking to your provider, asking the hospital, what are your C-section rates? What are your, episiotomy rates? We've got a whole checklist on our website you can download. But really getting some real numbers. And if they're real vague about it, that's generally not a good sign. But trying to get some real numbers and really understand, where they're at with those things. And there's questions like, do you allow moms to eat or drink during pregnancy? And this is like an old school thing where a lot of hospitals do not let moms do that, even like anesthesiologists are like, let women eat, because the risk, there's a very few exceptions, okay,
during
for
labor.
Women that are, yeah, exactly. The women that are very high risk or that have, certain conditions, then it is best that they don't eat and drink. But that is a very, very small minority. And so this is like a misnomer that a lot of these hospitals are, saying don't eat, don't drink. And a lot of these moms are fatiguing. They don't have the energy and they, literally just fizzle out during, labor because they're just parched and they're hungry.
Well,
So,
I mean, when your uterus
things
is
like that.
dehydrated, when your uterus is dehydrated, you can't
It
push
is.
effectively.
It's a muscle.
Yeah, it's a muscle. It needs hydration. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I had the best birth team ever. And even I went like 7 or 8 hours without one thing to drink or one thing to eat, which was a huge mistake. And eventually someone gave me apple juice and I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this. It's like, I felt like I got shot up with, just energy. It was amazing. So that's the first thing. But then, having a birth plan, talking to your provider about your different preferences. If you get resistance for things like delayed cord clamping or skin to skin contact right after birth, you can literally pull up studies. I mean, these are things that even like the World Health Organization recommends. You know what I mean? This is not fringe. This is backed by science. This is evidence-based that babies that do skin to skin, their blood, their temperature, their breathing, their blood sugar, all of that regulates better than if they're put into an incubator. So things like that. There is no reason for a baby to be, given a bath immediately. That vernix that they're covered in is actually filled with good bacteria, with protective things for their skin, particularly when you're a hospital and you're exposed to lots of different types of bacteria. You want to have that coating, on the baby. I think just
with vernix, I was told that that you should not give them their first bath until up to five days postpartum. I thought, wow. With my daughter,
that would be awesome.
With my daughter, we did 2 days later. They tried to wash her with the Johnson & Johnson baby wash. And I was like, no, do not put that stuff on. It's rated a 10 by the Environmental Working Group. So with my third, we didn't. Which
should be illegal.
I know.
Right there. Isn't that just like something's wrong with that? Like, what is up with that?
So with my boys, my last two, my second two, we didn't bathe them until we got home. And then Jake, I waited the 5 days because I thought, why not? And it was great. He wasn't stinky. He smelled like a awesome new baby and his skin was so soft. Yeah. And I thought, This is amazing. I mean, it's just we are kind of brainwashed in like this kind of old science of the well, I guess it's modern day birth, but old science because the modern is like 1950s, you know. But I'm like
Hmm.
when I had my daughter, I had my birth plan all planned out. She was my first. My midwives knew they were amazing. I was so paranoid that somehow my whole birth plan wouldn't happen. And I remember they were like, okay, one more push and she is here. And I had been laboring for 12 hours and pushing for 4 and I was exhausted. But I'm like, wait, wait, wait. I'm like, okay, no cord clamping and don't give the hepatitis B vaccine. They're like, just push. I'm like, okay. And so then I pushed her out. But I was like, I was
Uh,
that crazy. You know, I was like that paranoid. But I mean, if you just
yeah,
have a conversation
yeah,
with them and have your birth plan and know that you have a good team. I mean, if I know some people have limited resources, but if you interview a doctor and you have access to multiple facilities in your community and they don't rub you the right way, you can go find another one, you know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then two other things I would just say that could help, especially for a woman that's in a situation where it's a little bit more challenging, right? Like it's maybe not as baby friendly of a hospital. You can definitely hire a doula. I always recommend getting a doula anyway, and they also are evidence based. They improve birth outcomes. They improve the mom's perspective of the birth. They are hugely helpful. Like women that get doulas, have lower rates of interventions. I mean, you can go on and on. So a doula, and for those that don't know, a doula is basically a woman usually who supports you during birth. And she's not a medical professional. She gives emotional, mental support, but she can just be a wonderful tool to have with you. So you're kind of surrounding yourself with positive people, with people that believe in a more natural approach and stuff like that. So that's huge. And then, consider going to the hospital as late as you can while still being smart about it because you don't want to give birth in the car. Although we do have a post about that for sometimes that can happen, but obviously you want to be at your designation when you give
Yeah.
birth. So, but if you can wait, because, the classic thing is, and even like mainstream doctors will say this now, they're like, don't come in too early because you go in and they send you back home. So it's pretty rare that a first time mom will come in and be crowning. You know what I mean? So usually they come in and if they feel like they really waited a long time, they're 4 centimeters. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
only 2. So if you can stay at home longer, that's just going to decrease the amount of time for, being on the clock for the intervention cycle to start. And then, the other thing I say too is like hospitals are bright, loud, noisy. Okay. Those are like the exact opposite conditions you want for birth. Okay. Birth is a very, very much a hormonal cascade. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute you incorporate tons of bright light, noise, sound, the body interprets it as danger and you literally can shut your birth down or slow it down. That's why a lot of times, like if you're even on the way in the car, you could kind of stall your labor a little bit because it's a disruption, right? Because you kind of want to get into that birthing zone. You want to be in a dark, cozy, safe place. So try to recreate that at the hospital. See if you can dim the lights or turn off the lights. See if you can put on some gentle music. Do some deep breathing. I need some solitude. Some women even just escape into the bathroom because that feels safe, like their little cave.
That's where I
So that's
was.
another thing you can do to just create, that sense of
Well, and that, I mean, the
safety.
the doula is such a good point too, because we had a doula with my first two, and with my first, we didn't know what to expect, so I got a doula. And my husband, who's this big, strong, strapping farm boy who I'd only see cry like twice in his life in our relationship, which at that point was 10 years together, lost it. He was bawling. He
Mm,
couldn't stand to see me in pain. And then I started throwing up from the pain and he couldn't handle that. And my doula was there to hold my bag and she
mhm,
helped me into the bathtub and she turned off all the lights and she put little like flickering fake candles in there to give just a flicker and
mhm.
rubbed my back and like totally brought me around while Luke sat in the room bawling his face off, and
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
anticipate that. I mean, I was at the point where in between contractions I'd get up and I'm like, "Are you okay? Like what's wrong with you? Are you good? Do you need oxygen? Do you need CPR? Like what's going on?"
Oh my,
It was
oh my
crazy. Yeah,
gosh.
and the second one he
Wow.
was better and then the third one was we're like we've done this before, but having a doula there, I mean, it was we wouldn't have been able to do it without her. We would have had to have the midwives in there the whole time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, doulas are amazing. And I agree. I mean, she brought me right out of that fight or flight by bringing the lights down and all that stuff. So that was
Yes. Good,
huge.
good,
Yeah,
good,
it was
good, good.
amazing. Um, so yeah, what else was I going to talk about? Actually, I wanted to know some of the tips that you have for moms who want to get pregnant. Just some of the top tips. I know
Sure. Sure.
infertility and getting pregnant is a big thing right now, and a lot of it I have found is tied to stress in women because we have to be
Yes. Yeah.
so many things in this modern world. So,
Yes,
what's your
yes,
take
yes. I
on?
mean, that is probably the most heartbreaking situation because you want to get pregnant so bad and it's not happening, it's not happening. It's like, oh my gosh, why isn't this happening? And it's brutal. So, but the good news is there's been tons and tons of women that have struggled with infertility that go on to have a healthy, full term, beautiful baby, and it can be, in most cases, dealt with. So, of course, the first thing is nutrition, and I'm sure most of your listeners eat a really awesome, balanced, whole food diet. Like you said, reducing stress, taking things off your plate, learning to say no. It's almost like, and in a lot of traditional cultures, they understood this, but when you and your partner decide, okay, we're going to try to have kids, okay, it's almost like you should kind of go insular. And I think a lot about this with the first trimester when a woman's pregnant. It's almost like we also go into the womb. I think we purposely don't feel as great. We're tired. Some of us struggle with nausea, but it's a way for us to really slow down and keep it simple and just have the bare essentials be what we're focusing on. So if a woman can kind of recreate that even before she gets pregnant, that is awesome because you just want to get into a more of a slowed down, simple lifestyle. You're going to be cutting out alcohol, hopefully caffeine, or at least reducing it significantly, junk food, all that stuff. So you're just kind of in this cleansing, simplifying process. The other thing is tracking your cycles. I find the menstrual period, I love getting my cycle every month. Like I think getting a period, I know a lot of women hate it and they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I never had these. But I think it's a beautiful gift that we're given as women because it's kind of like a window into our overall health and balance. So you can learn a lot about where you're at hormonally through just your monthly cycle. So if your cycles aren't consistent, they're not every 28 days, if you get lots of cramps, discomfort, bloating, headaches, if you get ovulation pain, ovulation headaches, those are all clues that, hey, you know what, I need to do some balancing here. So of course, going in, getting a hormonal panel, seeing what's going on, and then you can kind of address things accordingly, Some women find seed cycling helping a lot. Some people find just sleeping, they call it luna cycle or lunaception, which is basically the idea of just sleeping in complete darkness, except for a couple of times during the month that kind of coincides with the full moon. But just something as simple as that, just sleeping in darkness without your iPhone or your plug-in clock or your TV on is huge. Because melatonin is affected by all the different blue lights and the artificial light that we're all so exposed to these days. And that is the master hormone that cascades and affects all of our hormones. Then, of course, taking certain supplements like, cod liver oil. Some people find like, food-based vitamin C, which is really good for progesterone. You'd have to work with a healthcare provider to find the right things to kind of help balance you out. But there's definitely strategic supplements you can take. Sometimes it's as easy as using food, like having a raw carrot a day can really help. There's certain fiber in the skin of a carrot in studies that reduces like endotoxins and kind of takes some of that hormonal load off. It's kind of almost like a detoxifying thing to do. And it's so simple. I mean, a carrot, it's delicious.
Yeah.
And
Cheap.
you just, cheap. Another thing is, cruciferous vegetables. Those are phenomenal for estrogen metabolism, things like that. So throwing, really making a concerted effort. I've really been noticing, I think I eat a lot of veggies, but I've really been paying attention and I'm like, gosh, you know what? I really don't. And so when I really make it an effort, like every single day to be getting like the 8 cups, which I know is just so insane, but that's kind of where, we want to be, or at least 6 cups of veggies a day. I feel so much better. It's amazing. So really being sure you're getting those veggies and getting the cruciferous vegetables, sauerkraut.
Cutting out sugar.
Yeah, cutting out sugar, things like that. You always want to look at the thyroid. Some women, it's just the thyroid. And as soon as you fix the thyroid, bam, all the other hormones, the period regulates. So really getting like a full thyroid panel by like a functional or holistic doctor who understands, how to really read those tests would be important. Let's see. I don't know what else is good. I think too, this sounds silly, but I think for me at least, I remember especially when I was still single, because I didn't get married, till later in life compared to, I guess, some of my friends and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to find a husband and this or that. So I started putting around in my apartment twos. Like I noticed that all of my artwork, a lot of the things that I was looking at throughout my day were like solitary people. You know what I mean? It'd be like a woman, or just like it was all these individuals. Or like a statue of an individual. So instead I started bringing in couples and like I had this little, you know what I mean? Like two little hearts.
Yeah.
And there's like a little ornament. I put that up and start, you know what I mean? So you can start doing that. It's like, okay, pictures of babies up, get a vision board. It sounds silly, but we are emotional, spiritual, physical people, right? So we want to look at all of the different angles. Babysit. Hold your friends' babies, love on some children in your community. Those types of things can also help. And I think, celebrating when you hear about other people being pregnant, which is really challenging because if you're, wanting to get pregnant and everyone around you is getting pregnant, it's going to be heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. But I think by shifting the energy, getting into gratitude, celebrating that, in some ways, I think it almost like it brings that to you.
Well, there's like the whole law of attraction thing that I really am a believer in. But I mean, it's what you think you create in your life. So if you're always thinking about loss or like that you're not going to get pregnant, like these negative thoughts, that's what you'll actually attract. If you're like thinking, well, I'm infertile, my uterus doesn't work, that's what you're going to attract. But even if it's hard, even if you've been through heartbreak and loss and all these things, if you can think things like, I am like, not I will be like, my uterus is healthy. I am conceiving, like positive thoughts. It sounds woo, but I do this every day. And I find it's a really powerful mindset tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just focusing on the positive, focusing on, because you can't be like, oh my gosh, this is never going to happen. You can just get into this spiral of negative thinking, and that's not doing anyone, because your body will literally believe you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like our cells obey. I mean, it's the idea of like, if you go to a movie and it's really scary, your mind can't tell the difference if it's real or whether it's, this movie. And so what are the tapes you're telling yourself, over and over again, because your body is going to believe that. Mm-hmm. And then, acupuncture, of course, has helped. I had a couple of friends struggled. They went on IVF, all these different things. And then they went to acupuncture and got pregnant. So that is another phenomenal tool to use. I've got a whole post on fertility, but, those would be my top thoughts on that.
Cool. I will link to your fertility post in the show notes. Well, I think we'll just wrap it up. And thank you so much for coming on. And
it's my pleasure.
Just let everybody know where they can find you, which is pretty obvious. But if you just want to let everyone know where they can find you across the interwebs.
Sure. Yeah. It's just Mama Natural. So MAMAnatural.com. That's probably the best place to find me, because then from there you can go to Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And for moms that are pregnant, so they can just sign up for it. It comes either via text, email, or messenger. And it was really fun to put together. And again, it's approaching pregnancy each week from a natural perspective for moms that, want to do things a little bit differently than maybe mainstream. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I will put links to everything in the show notes below. And thank you so much. You're amazing. You're doing so many great things in this world.
My pleasure. It's awesome. I love my job.
Yes. Well, you do a great job at it. So thank you. And all the women out there are saying a collective thank you as well.
Thank you for listening in to Real Food RN Wellness Podcast today. By tuning in regularly, you will begin to take your healthful lifestyle into your own hands and develop an empowered attitude about yours and your family's life. If you want to be the first to know about the latest news, recipes, and healthy living tips, then go to www.realfoodrn.com and sign up today.